There's no good reason, there's no sane reason to be a
Right.
comedian. Why did you make me feel that? How could you do that, Saad? You go through such lows of like 2-3 years of no work and no money and nothing coming in and just like, will this ever change? When you are a comedian, you fall on your ass so much and it's so bruised that you just have to keep getting up and going.
Hello and welcome everyone to episode 55 of DigiTales. My name is Faizan, Syed, and today I have the very funny Saad Haroon, a comedian you all know, with me, sitting right across from me. How are you, Saad?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. 55th episode. I like that.
55, that's a good number to
Yeah,
have.
I like double numbers. I feel they're lucky for me.
So this should be a lucky episode, right? As you're in the middle of on tour in Pakistan.
Yes, on tour in Pakistan. Just got done with a set of Karachi shows,
Right.
and we're going to add a weekend on the 21st and 22nd of October. But right after this, we're in Lahore on the 6th and 7th and 8th of October at Packages Mall.
Nice.
And then we are in Islamabad at the Hive on the 14th and 15th and 16th of October. And that's the tickets are all available on Ticketwala. And I have to rectify this thing say every time, you know.
So Ticketwala is the easy place to go.
Ticketwala is easy, or just come to the venue and, you know, try your luck and everything. Hey, it's a lucky episode.
Right.
You never know. You might
never
get
know.
lucky with tickets.
So tell me, you moved to the US.
I did. I moved to the US for a while and then I
Yeah.
moved back from there. But all my life I've kind of moved around.
Yeah.
I grew up in Hong Kong, then I moved back to Pakistan, then I went to the US for college, then I moved back to the US, then I moved back here. So I don't know where I'll end up next.
You can't sit still.
I cannot sit
Where
still.
do people find your jokes funniest?
Where do they find me? I mean, to be honest, if you create the atmosphere, if you have that right setting and you have the right people,
Right.
it's really kind of, I mix and match my jokes. So it depends. So if I'm performing in the US, it's a different set of jokes. If I'm
Right.
performing in Pakistan, it's a different set of jokes.
So you're like a Facebook algorithm that changes
Absolutely,
based on the
yeah. If I'm
audiences.
talking to myself, it's a different set of jokes. It's, you know, it's whatever kind of suits the mood.
And how did you get into this? I mean, comedy isn't typically a career path, and I know you've mentioned in a couple of your shows that you came from a family textile background and everything.
Yes.
But I mean, what made you persevere through? Like, how did you wake up every day and said, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so it's a compulsion. There's no good reason. There's no sane reason to be a
Right.
comedian. There's a lot of other things you can do. Even
Yeah.
firefighter would be saner than comedian, I think.
Yeah.
Even sometimes, I think even running to
Parents would be a lot more proud. My son's a
Yeah,
firefighter,
absolutely,
you know?
yeah. With comedy, they're like, they run out of the building
Yeah.
when I'm performing. So it's just one of those things which I think, and a lot of artists must feel this,
Yeah.
which is that you're compelled to do what you do, and you wake up and you're lucky in a certain ways because a lot of people don't have a calling in life, and they kind of go through life wondering, what am I doing and why am I doing this, or why am I at this job?
Yeah.
You know, so it's great that way, but at the same time, it's painful in other ways because, you know, every day, it's day by day, show by show, month by month, year by year. So
how do you build that motivation? Because look, it's not like taking a job where you just show up and the day goes by and at the end of the month you get a paycheck, right? Or, you know, you pick, let's say, a professional track like medicine, and you every year you know you're going to enter this new part of training and go become a doctor and keep gradually stepping up.
you know, there
This
are
is
days
too unpredictable.
Yeah. There are days I wake up and I'm like, why didn't I just become a doctor?
Right.
You know, like
So
there
how do
are
you get
those
through
days.
those days? I mean, that's what like that I find is so inspiring when I meet artists. Is how do they find the motivation to get through those days?
So I think that when you are a comedian, you fall on your ass so much and it's so bruised that you just have to keep getting up and going. You have no option to sit down.
And it's harder in comedy, you know, because look, I still think that music and art are still a little bit more.
Yeah, I do that too. I wake up some days and I'm like, why didn't I become a musician? You know, I think I wake up disgruntled a lot.
Right.
I think that's it.
Because comedy isn't, you know, even in, let's say, our part of the world, you know, there's still an art school.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't a comedy school, right?
No, there's not.
There's still, you can go to these, you know, classical musicians and learn their trade. And, you know, there's a lot of history around music. But comedy, is just something that doesn't fit into our culture, even though we should be laughing at ourselves a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone around the world should be laughing at themselves. They shouldn't take themselves so seriously, but we take ourselves very, very seriously.
Why do you think that is?
I just mentioned this actually. I was talking to a friend about it. Because, we live in a country with no bijli, no pani, no gas, no safety.
But isn't that hilarious in itself?
I mean, it's
And we're
hilarious.
living.
Well, it's hilarious for me, but for the people listening to it, they're like, we don't have all these things. All we have is our ego. And you're like, then a comedian comes and takes that as well. They're like, now I'm completely broke. I have nothing, So
Right.
it's one of those things.
Interesting. So you think that, okay, so people feel I have nothing except my ego.
Yeah,
therefore
just
I
my integrity, and that's all that's left,
Right.
And a comedian's like, what do you do? And they're like, that's gone too now. But when they come to the shows and they realize that, to be honest, it's all about truth. Comedy
Yeah.
is all about truth, and what we're trying to get from them, what we're trying to talk to them about, is the truth of who they are and what it is. Because we live in layers and veils in our society, trying to portray this perfect image of ourselves all the time.
Right.
And comedy is not perfect. It's completely imperfect, and it shows all the cracks and all the dirt and all the grime and all that shit that's stuck to everything.
Right.
That's what we shine a light on, to be like, look, nothing's perfect in this world. So just exhale, and be yourself.
And how is, compared to Pakistan, how is the US audience base, even if it's, let's say, Pakistani expats who live there or whatever, how is it different in terms of the way they receive that comedy? Because they also maybe grew up in a family with that ego challenge, but now they're in a different environment.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's kind of similar to why Pakistanis stand in line abroad and they don't stand in line here. When they come to a theater there or a comedy show, they know the etiquette.
Right.
They know, don't take out your cell phone.
Right.
They know, okay, the comedian's going to talk to you. You don't have to be offended by it. They know that, okay, buy your tickets in advance.
Oh, so
that's
they're
how
straight-laced
it goes.
over there. But
They're straight. I mean, not everyone. I mean,
Right.
it's not just people from Pakistan. I think that we aim to stereotype our own people too much. They're good people and they're bad people all around the world.
Right.
And it's just who you get on one show at one time.
So it's that variable.
Yeah, of course. I mean, over here, I don't have to worry about drunk people at my show. Over there, I'll be like, what do you mean, Pakistan? You don't have to do so there's challenges you'll face in every audience.
And so how, when you're dealing with different audiences, right? So do you take one idea and adapt it for different audiences, or are there different ideas? Walk me through the ideation process of how an idea or an observation turns into a joke.
Wow. So this is all the nitty-gritty that the audience doesn't want to see. They just want to come to the show.
Yeah.
Because it starts off with hundreds of pages of material, then it gets down to 100, then 10.
So you write hundreds of pages?
Yeah. You're writing constantly.
Really?
You
don't
ideas
hear that
and
much
jokes.
about that.
Yeah, you
actually.
don't, because nobody wants to see that, right? I mean, you don't want to see, if you go to the opera and see you don't want to see the ballerina falling down 50 times. That's just like,
That's true.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that
No
sucks.
one wants to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, nobody wants to see how this exactly. Nobody wants to see that. So it's a.
So you're what? You're sitting down, you find a quiet place, and you just write pages and pages.
Yeah. So you make yourself sit down, you write. Sometimes you get up in the morning. Sometimes in the middle of the night you wake up and you write something down.
And what do you
sometimes
write?
It's just an idea or a thought or a dialogue in your head. And so a lot of times, I'll be talking to myself and my cook will come into the room and she'll see me doing this. And she'll be like, oh my God.
He's lost it again.
He's crazy. And what do you do? But that's how you're doing it. You're like, and that's how you're doing it. You're just constantly talking to imaginary audiences in your head.
Yeah.
You're constantly looking at ideas. And basically what a comedian does, and I think Jerry Seinfeld said this, if I'm not wrong, or I'm paraphrasing it because I heard it a long time ago, is that you show people a version of the world that they can't see or they haven't seen, So you're just kind of, you're putting on those rose-tinted glasses that, Elton John wears to be like, oh, now things all of a sudden look cool and they look different. So that's our job, because so this thing in front of you, like this crazy bush that they decided to put here.
Yeah, I
you
think
know,
we just plucked it from downstairs.
Yeah. Exactly. We're like, we can't afford flowers. It's a
I've been
podcast.
I've been trying to figure out. Yes, we really can't. That's why we need sponsors, guys.
Yeah. Wait, but sponsor us first.
Yeah.
And them later, okay?
So you then go through pages of material. Your material references maybe come from politics, current affairs,
Everything.
a personal
everything.
interaction.
Yeah, so if you come to my show, which you will, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. That damn straight you're coming
And I
to my
will pay
show.
for the ticket.
Yeah, you'll pay for the good. That's Alhamdulillah. Things are
Support
changing.
the arts.
Things are changing. One podcast at a time. Sorry, what were we saying?
So I said you find personal observations, current affairs, politics to find, let's say, that material that triggered you.
So sometimes I'll do a joke in a show which is completely absurd.
Right.
You know, it has no bearing on reality, but for some reason it like tickles something in your brain,
Right.
and you laugh. And some things are like, I've thought out that joke for months and months and months. I've written every single word, bit by bit, pause by pause, you know, nuance by nuance, like sentence by sentence until it's a bit. So it's everything, you know.
Wow.
You know?
So you actually, so it's like script writing and then rewriting and rewriting.
Yeah, and then
practicing the
and then
delivery.
yeah. So then it's like you're first you're the writer.
Yeah.
Then you're the actor. Then you're the director. Then you're the producer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that explains why in the US, a lot of these sitcoms, the stars of those sitcoms or the main figure was once a writer or was once, you know, someone on the back end.
Yeah. So
who's
they
now
call
coming to the front.
Exactly. So they call those showrunners. When you're writing and producing it, and then they're like, "Oh, I'll star in this vehicle as well."
Right.
So I think it's also kind of one of those things where they're like, "Oh, this guy can do all these three things. He has a vision, or he or she has a vision," and then you go ahead and you do it. And a lot of times that works because the vision is so different and so clear.
Yeah.
That it works.
So then you take this bit, you've practiced it, you've rehearsed it. Now you go on stage.
Yeah.
And the first time you deliver it, it does not play out the way you anticipated.
Yeah.
And the crowd goes, in fact, the crowd doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
How do you recover from that?
Oh, okay. So a lot of crying. Crying helps. No, I mean, it mostly you learn from your mistakes. You're like,
no, so in the moment, if the crowd goes dead, like how do you immediately then switch gears and be like, all right, I got to keep picking these guys.
like I said, you've spent like months, if not years, writing this show, right?
Yeah.
So you do it bit by bit, joke by joke. So if one joke doesn't work, you still have like 120 other jokes in your set, you know? It's literally every 15 or 30 seconds, there's a joke that you've written, you know? And it's just one funny thought. And it's just one after the other after the other. And you might have had one and written it and everything like that. But for an audience member, that's 30 seconds. That's it. You move to the next one. So they're like, oh, that wasn't too funny. Here's the next joke. And then for the next show, you're like, okay, let me tweak that joke. Let me come back with it. Let me see if this variation works. Then you do it. Then how does it link to the next joke? And how do you go from the next one to the next one? Wow. So it's literally like that chess game. You're just playing with yourself in your head.
And so there isn't... Are there moments where you just, on an impromptu basis, just react to the audience and just kind of
all the time.
Where the audience is going?
Yeah, all the time. All
Really?
the time. So it's half of it is scripted and half of it is always talking to the audience. I do a lot of crowd work.
Yeah.
So it does do that.
And how is crowd work different from, let's say, scripted work?
Oh, it's completely improvised. They're just telling you things and you're building stories that they're telling you on their head and you're kind of riffing on that and building scenes in your mind. And
so your mind needs to be running at like 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah. So for that hour, you know, the day of a show, like I don't really do much else. Like I'll do maybe like a podcast or maybe something small and, you know, something fun or something like that, or some writing or anything. But I can't be like, I save all my energy for that burst of like an hour and a half.
Wow. Okay. And so once you're done, you must be drained.
I am. No, you still have adrenaline, so you're bouncing till like 3 a.m. and then you just crash.
And then you crash.
Yeah, because you built up so much adrenaline. But it's different for different people. Like for me, I find comedy. I've been doing it for 20 years. I still find it really hard. You know, it's not like I'll go on stage and I'm like, yeah, it's been 20 years. I got this. You know, I have none of that. I have none
You
of
can't
that.
Dave Chappelle that thing.
No,
right
I have
now.
none of that. I wish I had that hubris, you know?
Yeah.
I don't, you know? Every time I have to go back, I have to learn my script, I have to redo my jokes and
Right.
get back on stage. So I just go and I do the work and I pray it works.
Right.
And you can do everything right and still a show can go wrong.
And give me an example. Tell me about a time where a show went wrong.
Oh my God, there's so many times a show, you get the wrong audience. I mean, you can have the best written show on the planet and then you can be in like, you can have like a crowd where everyone is sitting with their wives and, you know, and or with their kind of cousins or something like that. And you crack the best dirty joke on the planet and they can't laugh and they're like, and there's like silence, you know?
Wow.
So it just depends and they're like, why did you make me feel that? How could you do that, Saad?
But they showed up there voluntarily for that.
They did. But for them, it's one of those things where you gotta read your audience and you gotta hope they're in the mood and you gotta figure out what's happening and you gotta figure out if they laughed enough in the opening act and I wish there was a science to it.
And so, is there a joke that you thought was super funny that no one laughed at, but you thought this other joke is terrible, but everyone just kind of like
yes,
died?
all the time. Yeah, all the time.
So you're basically saying there's no formula to
There's
this.
nothing. It's anarchy. It's madness.
Comedy is just writing a whole bunch of stuff and praying.
Yes, and praying, and just saying that, you know, like, and also you're a salesman because you're trying to sell the joke, right? So you're like, ab ye dekhe, you know, like they show the cloth,
right?
You know, in Zena market, ab ye dekhe, ye acha lagta hai, acha dekhe, ye dekhe, you know, so you're
a
doing
cloth
everything.
salesman in Zena market, changing the. You know?
I'm literally everything but a comedian. The comedy is like 1/5 of my job,
right?
And it's everything else that's my real job.
And what about like, so, you know, in our slightly more conservative market, you know, negative backlash or negative comments or यार ये बात नहीं करनी चाहिए मैं तुम्हें देख लूँगा क्या समझते हो
all the
अपने आप
time,
को?
all the time,
Really?
all the time. But that's my job. My job is
So
to
people
talk.
actually come up to you and say that? Kind of
No,
stuff?
they don't come up to me, but
on
they'd
social,
happily.
yeah.
No, they will come up to me as well, you know, because I used to do this bit on cousins getting married and why that's funny and everything like that.
Right.
And they came up to me after the show and they're like, "We're cousins."
Yeah.
Literally 2 cousins, and like, we didn't find that funny. And I'm like, listen, that's great. Let's have a conversation about this.
Right.
About why we should talk about this. Why? Because I don't understand why it's my job, but it's my job to talk about the difficult things. Because if nobody else talks about it, we're just stuck in this rut of society. And everyone's like, Pakistan nahi badlega. If you don't talk about it, how is it ever going to change?
True.
We're not changing only because we don't have those difficult conversations.
Right.
If we just brought it all out into the open, then there's nothing to fear.
There's nothing to fear. Absolutely right. And so, you know, if you look at some of the Western markets, there used to be this show called Yes, Prime Minister.
Yes.
I mean, it's hilarious for how dry and how true it is of how the bureaucracy globally works. And then you look at shows, you know, like let's say the Jon Stewart Daily Show or the Trevor Noah Daily Show. You look at any of the late night shows. You look at Saturday Night Live. All of these shows use comedy to educate mass audiences on facts around them.
Yes, comedy is a vehicle, you know.
For education.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Why can't we use that in our market? It's our ego?
That's what we're trying. It's not our ego. Firstly, it's just, like I said, it's just hard, even for me to talk about something. And I talk about, in this show, very difficult kind of issues. So if you want to hear about it.
Here's a piece of cloth.
You know, come to Packages Mall on the 6th, 7th, 8th of October. So basically, you know, even for me to talk about those difficult things, like these shows have like 10, 12 writers and they'd have, for us, we don't have, nobody's actually trained us in comedy writing or anything. And I actually am going to have workshops right now. I do train people to do comedy, but I can't do it as much as I want to because you just got to make a living. So
why not do an open mic night like some other places do?
No, you don't. I mean, an open mic night, you don't learn anything at an open mic night. You'll just try your stuff and people can do those. And they don't need someone like me. And I did. That's where I started. I actually used to do open mic nights. The first ones that actually happened in Karachi, maybe even Pakistan, I don't know. But that's where we started. And you have to go deeper than that. You have to teach people how to write comedy and how to think comedy.
So the whole point of 100 pages and the practicing and the
pauses. Yes, like how do you find that? So I said it all comes from an interesting idea, right? So how do you find that interesting idea? Or when you come across it, how do you know it's interesting and you need to write it down? Or there's a science to it. And, we talked about the fact that there's art schools and everything like that. I did train to do comedy as well at the UCB in New York. And so I have also kind of gathered from my own experience and learned experiences, everything. And, in November, I have a workshop in Dubai. I work with a theater over there, and we're going to do a workshop, and people come and they learn comedy there, and we do a intense masterclass. And so hopefully we'll also do those things over here.
And so where do you take all of this, package it together? So you're doing the workshops, you're doing the comedy, you're doing the tours. What do the next 5 years, what do you hope they look like? Do you want to be a showrunner?
No. I mean, that's the scary thing. At first I wanted to do everything. You want to, you want your own TV show and, I got it for a while. We did the Real News. I don't know if you remember back in the day, and that was great. And people really appreciated that. And then I did a radio show as well. And so you do have these things which you're like, oh, I'm getting these things and they're good gigs and I'm doing them. But it's just chaos, at this point in my life. I've been through so much, and COVID, you go through such lows of like 2-3 years of no work and no money and nothing coming in, and just like, will this ever change? And just from that kind of zero, like nothing happens, like I want to kill myself type thing. And literally down there to now if I get a show and I'm doing it, I'm happy. I don't.
So the gratitude that it's taught you, that the downs taught you that level of gratitude.
Yeah, the down has taught me that I don't give a fuck what I get right now. All that stuff. And I do have ambitions. Like I do want to do those things. I do have these passion projects, But if they don't happen, and I just live a happy life, I'm okay. I know you can't be in this for the money. And you can't, if I was doing it for the fame, I should have done anything else. Dramas or music or something. So I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I just hope I get through. And so, I know it sounds like insane, and it is. But it's the life you choose.
So anyone looking to get into comedy, especially in our market, right? I mean, it's tough. There's very few avenues. Outlets aren't there, training isn't there, there's no sort of mentors, masters. Well, you are there, so you can obviously mentor people. But, for someone who's decided and has the same sort of conviction like you do, that this is what I want to do, what is the one thing you would tell them that they should be prepared for?
Oh, write. Wake up, write, go to sleep, write in your sleep, write in your dreams.
Writing, huh?
Yeah, write in your dreams. Write while you're exercising in your head, write while you're doing that day job that you hate, always be writing, and work hard, and if you build it, it will come, But remember what you're building. You're not building the Empire State Building, If you want to build that, be a banker, be a lawyer, be that stuff. More power to you. We need those things in society. But if you want to be a comedian, you're building something that you can only see. That's a castle in your mind, And for me, in my mind, my castle is beautiful and my bed is soft. And
that's all that matters.
And that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Yeah. Awesome. Saad, thank you so much. This was such a great chat.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Writing, comedy is hard. It's difficult being funny.
I don't know. I've just been lying to you the whole time. None of this is true. I just made it all up. No, I'm just kidding. No,
and you have to check out his show.
Yes, check out my show. I'm going to plug it one more time.
I know it's on Ticketwala.
It's on Ticketwala, thank you. It's at Packages Mall, 6th, 7th, and 8th of October, right around the corner. So come there. And the Hive in the Blue area in Islamabad on the 14th, 15th, 16th. Come there. And then back in Karachi for one finale weekend on the 21st and 22nd of October. I've worked my ass off for this show, so please come watch it.
And buy tickets. Don't ask him for free tickets.
Yeah,
support the
odds. People do that.
How much is a ticket for?
It's 2,500 rupees.
Okay, it's a little steep, but still buy the ticket.
It's steep. Are you talking in dollars or rupees?
But right now that's like $10.
Yeah, right now.
So it's actually pretty cheap.
It's pretty cheap.
It's actually not even lunch in New York now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's coming down.
Yes.
rupee,
Well,
the ticket price.
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, look, it's going like the money's going for flood relief as well, and we have to pay the venues, and we have to
Nice.
do everything. So we just have to make sure that you
That's
just want
great. You guys
everyone
are
to be
supporting.
happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just want everyone. We just want to do our bit. I think I've done too much.
No, I think
I
this
think
is
I need
great.
a nap. No.
I think it's great, and I think everyone should buy a ticket. Come see his show. Saad Haroon is hilarious. Thank you so much for taking the time out, Saad.
Thank
This
you
was
so
a lot of
much.
fun.
Yeah, thanks, Faizan, and we'll see you at the show.
Absolutely, you will. And thank you all for tuning in to episode 55. See you next week. Bye bye.